Hi there, I'm Marilyn. I'm the CEO and founder of Cosmic Centaurs. For those of you joining us for the first time, Cosmic Centaurs is an organizational and leadership development consultancy, and we've been running the Cosmic Conference for 6 years now because one of our principles is sharing what we learn with the world. And every year for the past 6 years, we chose a theme that we thought resonated with the leaders we work with. From navigating remote work and managing hybrid teams, designing effective employee experience, to strategy execution and building organizations that deliver. And over the past year, I've heard countless leaders share the same frustration, feeling trapped in firefighting mode. They tackle urgent problems with energy, with determination, but they watch the same issues resurface again and again. And what these stories revealed to me is not a failure of leadership or strategy, but a failure of the systems that we rely on. And that is why this year's theme is "The System is the Strategy," helping effective leaders go from firefighting to future building. What does it really mean to think in systems? Why does it matter for leaders today? And how do we move from abstract concepts to practical methods we can use in our organizations and in our daily lives? These are the questions that we're hoping to answer together. And to help you learn the mindset, the methodology, and the muscle of systems thinking, we have webinar series over 3 different tracks. Track number 1 is Systems Thinking 101. Our first session with Darren was last week, and actually tomorrow we have another one with Dr. Derek and Laura Cabrera to help us understand the foundations, the core principles, the tools, the methods. And all of these sessions, you'll notice, begin with the word understanding. Track number 2, and that's the track for today, is about learning from leaders who build or break systems to scale, to innovate, to build safety, to measure impact, or even to reclaim their balance. And track number 3 is more the human and spiritual track, where we bring heart back into the conversation. Today, we're going to talk about something that is on every leader's mind because it has the potential to be a system breaker, and that's AI. According to McKinsey's latest global AI survey, 78% of companies now use AI in at least one business function. And despite this, only 1% of organizations say their rollout is truly mature. Most companies are still experimenting at the edges, not really rethinking their structures, their operations, but also how they create value in the world. And this gap between adoption and maturity is a systems problem. That's what we're going to talk about. We'll be zooming in on how AI is reshaping the way companies are structured, operate, but also how they create value. The choices that organizations face when it comes to bringing AI into their world, and the real hurdles and blind spots that stand in the way, from internal capabilities to middle managers and beyond. And to help us unpack all of this, we're joined by someone who is right at the intersection of AI, strategy, and organizational transformation, and that's Imad Lahad. Imad currently serves as the Global Chair of AI and Intelligence at APCO, where he leads initiatives that harness emerging technologies to drive innovation and transformative solutions for APCO and its clients. He joined APCO in 2013 as Director of Digital Strategy, went on to lead the Dubai office before heading the global digital practice, and he launched the AI Comms Lab, which led to the creation of Margie, APCO's proprietary adaptive intelligence. And today, he oversees a multidisciplinary global team bringing together AI, data science, research, strategy, and digital innovation. With over 25 years of experience across media transformation and disruptive innovation, Imad is a recognized industry leader who regularly speaks on the topics of strategy disruption and the intersection of emotional and artificial intelligence. Imad, thank you for joining us today. Oh, I muted you. Here you go.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. And thank you, Marilyn and the team, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. I'm really looking forward to this. When we were prepping for this, you told me such brilliant stories, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to tell those stories to our audience today. And as you know, and as our audience knows, this session is designed to be a conversation. So as people tune in, I do really want to invite them to add their comments, to react, of course, to add questions, and I'll make sure to bring them out throughout the conversation because we want this to be as interactive and engaging as possible. So let's begin tackling the biggest problem of the century. I'm going to ask you a really tough question and hope that you give me a really great answer, which is, let's take a step back. paint a picture for us. What is AI doing to companies today, and how is it disrupting not only the way they're structured or they operate, but also how to create value?
Well, I'll tell you what I hope is that next year, like today, we don't talk about AI specifically and what AI is doing. Because I think people are still looking at AI as a tool or a platform or solution or a tech, piece and so on and so forth. Whereas AI is more of a system breaker across the board. And it's not only about one industry, it's not impacting certain companies more than the other. It's not impacting manufacturing more than services. If you're gonna compare it to something which is more recent in some people's, I would say, memory, would be what internet did to the world a couple of decades ago, right? And we kept talking about internet for a couple of years and about the impact of internet and what the internet will do with businesses and so on and so forth. But if we zoom out, internet disrupted and broke down almost every aspect of our life. That came as well, not only with the internet, so that came with what internet as well gave us as a derivatives, like social media platforms and so on and so forth. So AI, although it's not new, that concept has been around since 50s and 60s. Uh, but I think that was the result as well of the internet and the what the internet allowed us, especially with cloud computing and distributed computing across the board, and connectivity, for AI to be more democratized across the board, or beginning to be democratized. So I think it's like the internet for those who live that phase where your news and your information was driven by certain entities and individuals controlling maybe radio stations or newspapers or TV stations or satellite TVs at one point in time, into being more democratized. I think this is a internet on steroid in a totally different way.
I love this comparison. I also like it because I always say it's good to learn from history. We sometimes want to believe that we're experiencing something for the first time, but there's always a lot to be found in the past as well. And when you and I met, you told me this really brilliant story about the spiral that you see within the growth and evolution of organizations. And you gave me a great example from the publishing industry about
Mhm.
how they experience the internet, and maybe that can serve as a lesson of how we could think about how to experience AI. Could you tell this story again?
Well, it's not. So this is something that I learned from ex-colleagues of mine in a previous life. They were part of like a boutique consulting firm, and they were working on the concept of the loop and the jumping out of the loop. Uh, so in a nutshell, so the loop, when you have like a product life cycle, it goes up and down depending on the type of product, the industry, and so on and so forth. And as the industry or as the product starts going down, companies or brands or whatever you call it, they start running like headless chicken. How can I stop or reverse the decline? And that decline can be after like more than 100 years, like luxury brands and some of the big names that we know that are still uh, sometimes like flatten or growing, or some are decreasing. And in the industry, in the publishing industry, which I was part of in a previous life, when the internet, it was mainly the internet, and then it was accelerated by the global financial crisis in 2008. And during that period, publishing houses, newspapers mainly, uh, they did the unexpected, the majority of them, to be fair. They did the expected. They decided to fight it. And when I say fight it, it means like, nah, it's not going to pick up. People are still going to love the smell of newspapers in the morning. They would love it to be delivered at their doorstep. They're gonna have their coffee while going through these massive pages, and that experience will not go away. You cannot compare a newspaper or a book to a Kindle or to a website. Now, this reality started sinking in because of economic pressure, because of advertising shifts, because of access to information, because of so many other factors that came together and accelerated with the crisis. So they started, in their own way adapting to the new system, if you're talking systems. So they started losing money because advertisers were not spending as much. So some did it in different ways, but they all went through the same stages. So when they started going down, they started enhancing, optimizing their operation. Let's call it this way. So the first thing they did is fire a bunch of people that they didn't consider that these are a little bit more of non-essential. That does help them a couple of months, maybe a year, but that was not enough for them to keep growing. After that, they scaled down the size of the newspaper, moving from large ones to more of a tabloid size. That gave them a lifeline for a couple of, for some period of time. Then this was not working enough. Then they minimized or they reduced the number of papers in the newspaper itself. So it moved from being, I don't know, like half a kg newspaper to being like maybe like 10, 15 pages. Another lifeline. And they kept optimizing. And that it's like putting, a rope on your neck and you just start putting it together. And then it was not enough. Then they said, people cannot work as efficient, and they can have so much wastage. So they invested in printing machines that require much less people to operate, and they optimize production, optimize ink use, and so on and so forth. So they invested hundreds of millions in new printing machines so that they can be much more optimized when producing or printing the newspaper. That gave them as well a couple of months, whatever time, depending on the strength of each one of them. But it was not working enough. Then they got this brilliant idea as we don't need color in all pages. So they kept the front page color and the back page, and they moved back to the 1900, and the internal pages were black and white to save on cost. And they kept doing this while this rope is getting around their neck and being optimized and optimized and optimized. And you reach a stage at the end of it where you cannot optimize further. Like you fired whoever you can fire. You brought the best machines. They did as well the papers, right? So they started using thinner and thinner papers. So it's less cost. But at one point in time, you'll have transparency. You have the pages overlapping. You can, if you make it thinner, you can read on the you can read the back and the front in one place. So they made the paper thinner as well, and so on and so forth. Eventually, they reach a dead block, which they cannot optimize more than that, and face the harsh reality that it's not working. The smarts between them who saw this coming invested in the internet, in technology, and so on and so forth, and were able to deviate or loop out of this uh, vicious circle. And others, they came in, and these are the disruptors, they came in and during that period or before that with purely digital solutions. They were not coming from the legacy newspaper world. I think the biggest problem or the biggest challenge that these entities faced is that they confused newspapers with journalism. And that's the key difference. Journalism is not about the vehicle itself, it's about the profession. And they were linking journalism and journalists, especially the most senior ones, etc., with the paper, but not with the industry or not with the profession. And today we're seeing lots of people that are mixing between um, the industry and the tool, and they're trying to save the tool, not the industry.
I think that's a really powerful one. When you said they were confusing journalism with the journal, I thought that was a soundbite that I want to remember. And you and I have talked a lot, especially in our world, broadly, we operate in a similar environment of professional services, applied in very different ways, of course. But we see a lot of chatter in the consulting world around how this is turning us from a pyramid to an obelisk and how this is going to disrupt the industry. Just yesterday, I saw a headline that Deloitte had agreed to pay back, I don't remember which country, the
Australia.
government, Australia, that's right, $440,000 because they had used AI in generating this report, and there's nothing wrong with using AI, but they had let a lot of the hallucinations remain in the report, and there were a lot of errors and made up facts. And so you and I both kind of spend a lot of time thinking about what this means for us and our organizations. But for you, this is something that you've been thinking about for many, many, many years. And so I want to stay on this idea of not confusing journalism with the journal, not confusing the industry with the tool. And maybe you can talk to us a little bit about your own thinking of how this is applying to APCO and the world that you operate in, and also the product that you've built. And I want to spend some time later discussing this idea that AI is both something we need to bring into our workflows and processes to bring efficiency, but it's also about sometimes rethinking our entire business model. So give us let us travel into your mind about how you've reflected on this within your own industry.
Well, there's no winning formula, right? It's about experiences, it's about every company, it's about every industry, and the pathway, how you're managing that breaking in the system. But one thing is for sure, the way I was looking at it, how the business was looking at it, how the team was looking at it, is from different angles. Like any industry, you have the resistance, you have the way of doing things, uh, change management, and this is a chronic disease that every company has. Now, the scale of it will be different. The how deep it is and how um, toxic it is different, but it's shared everywhere. Um, I think the most important part is how can you, and it's not a tech thing; it's more of a business mindset, right? So when you talk about AI, like today, if you look at the majority of the talks around the industries, although AI is much more advanced, they're still talking about the efficiency part of it, right? The optimization part of it. So although it's a component, it's a major component. But this is a result. It's not the objective. Like when I look at the news that you mentioned about Australia and Deloitte, so there's multiple components here. Yes, they used AI and it included errors and hallucination. Um, but there might be the concept as well, which I'm not saying it's the case. I'm putting scenarios where, well, if you're using AI, we shouldn't have been charged that much. So that optimization thing is coming from the client and the agency or the consulting. So if I'm using AI, they have to charge less. So there might be an aspect where, oh, you charge us X amount of money and you went and use AI. You have been deceived. And if you're going to use AI or you use AI, then we should not be paying that much for it. And that's a very big misconception as well, because companies, as they're embarking on AI, it's like the happy free days of Facebook. Uh, Back in the early days, like everyone was happy with Facebook because you can open your own store or home business, you can sell cookies, you can do anything, and Facebook was completely free. So for everyone was like, wow, Facebook is great. What they do is awesome. New startups, and then they became big companies, started because of Facebook. And then the case started closing and closing and closing. Now you cannot breathe if you don't pay money, whether you to get access to audiences or to get your message through or to open a store and so on and so forth. Same with AI. Companies or clients at this stage are in the same history phase where they're thinking that because it's AI is cheaper, but AI is available to everyone. So if you're going to have differentiated AI, like you have differentiated staff members and you have differentiated talents, then you need to invest. And if you're going to have AI that's going to have less hallucination, an AI that's smart, an AI that can help you and your client, that requires investments which are much more expensive on the long run, medium run to long run, than actually hiring people, because the cost of technology and access is getting through the roof. So the concept is that if I'm using AI, it's cheaper. Um, on the short run, it's counterproductive. Now, I'm sure clients, as they onboard AI more and more, they're going to see the cost and the bill of having AI and how much it's going to cost them to actually have AI in their systems, irrespective of the consulting work. So that notion of optimization and efficiency is driving so many of the businesses. So many, again, coming to the tool and the industry are coming to AI from the aspect of I need a tool to make to get my business, much more profitable. And missing on the big picture about the industry, not the tool. How can I, instead of being just efficient, how can I maximize or multiply what I do with the power of AI? So I think we're underutilizing or under appreciating what AI can bring to us or can bring upon us, because if we don't do it, others would do it at the same time.
Oh, I love that. And in some ways, this hyper focus on the efficiency and optimization piece is like this, the cord spiraling around your neck. At some point, that won't be how you create value anymore, and it'll drive you to the ground. And I wonder if you can share with us, Imad, a bit more about Margie and how within APCO that reflection came to even rethinking how you deliver values to your customers without having to go through an existential crisis, but really like saying this industry isn't going anywhere, but the way that we deliver value might. And if you can tell us the story and the thinking behind how you built Margie and how it brings value to the world today.
Sure. But before that, uh, it's just beyond margin, like with AI today. Like if I'm talking about our industry, which is strategic communication and advocacy and everything that sits in between. Uh, our industry, which was more known as a PR industry, and still PR is core to what we do in so many areas. I think we sat on the sidelines and we missed the race uh, early on in the digital world, especially when social media started coming in with Facebook and then Twitter before X and the other platforms started coming in. So when these came in, the internet to start with, and then the social media that came with it, or after that as a byproduct, so many of our industry coming from journalism background, which is the same challenge from kind of traditional PR and so on and so forth. They saw on the internet at the beginning and social media as a fate. And the industry sat on the sidelines. This is the way I'm seeing it. They sat on the sidelines and they thought, oh, this is more of a creative thing. And what happened actually is that the creative industry, the advertising, the marketeers, and later on the specialized digital agencies that offer, website services and related services, and then later on social media management and so on and so forth. They came in, they saw the opportunity, and they captured it. At the beginning, I remember days where our industry would be uh, giving like a Facebook management for a client free of charge on top of a PR contract, because this is, just a Facebook page, put some posts around it, and so on and so forth. So by the time they realized that this is a core component in the communication mix and ecosystem and so on and so forth, they're already behind, and we started running, trying to catch up, to own or to have a space in the digital and the social ecosystem. Today, fast forward, if you're talking about AI, if we're going to give the same examples or the same analogy, we see that so many as well are still in the phase of sitting on the sidelines and considering this as a tech play, because the major players are tech players. The advertising industry and the marketing industry, to some extent, are taking the same position as the PR companies today, as if like they're all accepting that this is a transformation is going to be driven and led by the tech firms, whether it be OpenAI, Meta, Google, and so on and so forth. And the others are not sitting and watching. They are coming into the advertising and marketing and communication space. And they said that Mark Zuckerberg said that with the team that he's collecting, about creating like a complete ecosystem for marketeers and communicators, and others as well. So now it's not only us; others are sitting on the sideline watching the game happening, and they're looking at it from the outside. Again, thinking it's a tech game, while it's not. So going back to APCO, so when we started the idea of the lab in 2018, um, it was around we were thinking and brainstorming about what's coming next in terms of disrupting our industry, our clients' work, and so on and so forth. And it was visible that with the you know the availability of cloud computing, with AI, how it was moving, and so on and so forth, it was a matter of time because it becomes the new currency. But with that, we had the technical know-how. We built like a small team around us in the lab. um, we took a strategic decision. We're not a tech company. We know how to navigate around tech. We can see and we can tell what's going to impact us and our clients and how the business is moving. So we started thinking, how can we have an ecosystem that would leverage the technologies out there? Because if you're going to build your own technology, proprietary, completely proprietary, it's a matter of time before these big tycoons, they will offer similar services or competing services, and you will find yourself out of the race. So how can we have something that is platform agnostic, data agnostic, industry agnostic, that we can leverage and we can use the best of the tools out there, the best of the platforms out there in AI, and at the same time be able to provide customized, tailored solutions to our client that will first and foremost um, have a strong sense of privacy around their business, around their data. And AI is built as well on training, whether it be training on data or training on humans, so that the solution is relevant and it's really customized and made for the client. So having all this in mind, we came up with the concept of Margie a couple of years back. And Margie is named Margie because this is after our founder, Marjorie Krauss. Before that, it had a code scientific name, which was not appealing. So for a couple of years, we used to work on a project we called Project Cerebrum, which is the brain. Uh, but when we and it was more internal things that we're doing and testing and playing. And on our 40th anniversary as APCO 2024, we went out with a public facing, I would say, version of Cerebrum, and we called that as a recognition to our founder, Margie. And the concept of that Margie is collecting the collective wisdom of our teams through the mental modeling that we do, through our advisory board. And the real strength of Margie is that we deploy it in partnership with the clients, and it will harvest the knowledge of the client as well. So each client will have their own pool of harvested learnings that they can building on, while at the same time integrating the best of the technologies available out there. And we're not competing with anyone, with anyone. But at the core of it, we have our secret sauce on how we can leverage all of this and how we can make it client specific or industry specific and grow with the client. The last thing I'm going to say here is that we designed the concept in a way that is not a subscription. It's not you take a license with Copilot or ChatGPT or so on and so forth. It's more of a platform where our team and the client team they work, and that's their shared space, helping them in making decisions and helping them in understanding issues and challenges that they're facing, and pivoting outside of this loop into something else. So the promise is to have the client involved, partnership with the client, and not uh, a service provider with subscription to clients.
That's really smart. I want to unpack a few of these things. Like for me, one of the and the pricing and the model also just comes to complement that. But I just want to resonate with a few things that you said. First, we don't need to become a technology company to figure out AI. And it's almost what you said at the beginning of today. Is like, I hope that in a year or two, we won't be having this discussion. We all need to have these capabilities, but we don't need to compete with tech firms. There's no point. I just want to extract some of the things that I think are really interesting. There's no point trying to build, technology. It's more about integrating what's out there. This isn't our play, and it's not our capabilities. And I think there's universal wisdom in that, which is let's go back every time we are disrupted. And last year at the closing, I spoke about Fujifilm, which was a film company that became a cosmetics company, which is always going back to what is it that we're better than anybody else in the world at? It's not tech. Yeah, we can be good enough at tech, and we should be. But what we're better than anybody else in the world at is this domain, which we've spent 40 years becoming experts at. and where we have some of the smartest people in the world. And so going back to that fundamental and saying, great, from here, what can we build? I think is really beautiful. And your pricing model just comes to complement that thought, which is we're not trying to sell you tech. So we're not going to sell it to you as if it was tech. We're not going to give you a monthly subscription fee. We're still here to deliver what no one else in the world can, which is, the best support and advisory and execution on managing your reputation. And that is still how we're going to connect with you as clients. There was a question in the audience around how do you talk to clients about how you deliver value with AI, so that they don't see it as, oh, well, in this case, I should pay you less because now you're not using humans. I think you've really struck a chord with that and doubling down on what value you are actually creating and that it's not a technology layer.
Yes, and
Mm,
one of the core promises that when we set up to build a Cerebrum and then Margie, the agnostic part of it, right? The agnostic part as well is from the client side, because the whole power of AI, and this has been, the talk for decades, talking about data and data-driven decisions, and data at the core of what we do. There are so many, tag words and taglines around data and intelligence and how we use it and so on and so forth. But AI is really enabling us to use these to the best of what they can through conversational aspects versus looking at reports and charts and trying to making sense out of it, right? So one of the core areas that we that we decided early on is that one of the main barriers to entry to clients or clients to adopt is conversion cost and exit cost. And we know that from the days of the conventional ERPs, the SAP, the Oracles, and so on and so forth, right? So when you onboard for a strategic investment let's say, to deploy an ERP model. So the promise is that you can take it by module, and then you can have HR and then marketing, and you have that huge ecosystem. And that came with a painful process over a couple of years to adjust business processes, training, onboarding, change management, adoption, acceptance, so on and so forth across the board. And when you invest 2 to 3 years in a solution, uh, just to get it up and running, the exit cost to change it to another system is horrendous. And so many companies, they would stick with a system that's not maybe scaling and being agile as they would have hoped for 5 years down the line, as they were promised. And they see that they're lagging behind because the system is not being adaptable enough for them to grow with their business or the market. And if they're going to make that decision to switch to another one, the exit cost is huge because they have to go through not only millions of dollars of investment, it's through the entire painful process of doing it. So one of the areas that we thought about, Margie, is entry barrier and exit cost. How can we, because companies as well, in their AI journey, they have different maturity levels. So some are exploring and talking about how can I use AI for my content production. Some are looking at, AI and decision making. Some are much more advanced, much more sophisticated in the AI journey that they are. So we wanted an ecosystem where we can plug in at any journey. So if a company had already invested in some AI infrastructure, whether it be built internally, whether it be by adopting sandboxes from the big names that are available, and they did some learning on top of it, and they did model training, and they did so much in that space, Margie can come and plug into that and feed into that and really make use of their data and build on it. So we're not asking anyone to replace what they have. What we're saying is that you have legacy platforms, ERPs, you have maybe AI solutions you started deploying, you have data sets that are sitting in servers, cloud servers, that you don't know what to do with it, and so on and so forth. And Margie would come in and plug in, you can plug these into Margie and have that collective learning and collective data coming into one place. And these are built for you, which means you can take them home, and the learnings, you can take them with you as well. You're not prisoner to us, and you're not prisoner to others at the same time. So we're not telling you to replace or change what you're doing. We can build on what you have and optimize those investments and not replace them at the same time. I think that's core element for me as a business owner or a business manager, whatever you call it. I don't want to feel that the investments I did for 2 to 3 years in a certain ecosystem or a platform, if I'm gonna change, that so much of that will gonna be go to waste, or I'm not gonna be able to optimize it. But at the same time, if I have an opportunity to leverage that into much stronger ecosystems, I would love that.
Yeah, I really love this positioning because a lot of the discussion around AI, you tend to see a lot of people in these moments where something is shifting in the world will sit on one end of the spectrum or another. So either they'll tell you that AI is going to save you, or they'll tell you that AI is going to destroy you. And I really find a lot of wisdom in how you're talking about this, which is to say, it doesn't need to be any of these things. It can be a continuity. It's an important one. We can't ignore it, or else we're going to be left behind, but we don't need to see it as an apocalyptic event, which I think is very reassuring, and very wise as well. And speaking of this, like not having it feel like it's an apocalyptic event, you've done this with your clients, and you're building this, and it's a very participatory and collaborative process. But you also had to be at least one of the voices inside the APCO that were doing it internally. So
Mhm.
you've also helped the organization navigate this process from the inside as well. What can you tell us about that journey, and where have you found either the most challenges or the most rewards in getting APCO itself to be on board with the process and the method and the value creation that comes with AI?
There are good days and bad days. Uh, let's put it this way. But as I said at the beginning, it's not one thing, right? It's a combination of things. Uh, but I think I was lucky enough, and the team was lucky enough to be in a place where 40 years or more than 40 years down the line now, uh, the entrepreneurship mindset still prevail in APCO. So in 2018, when you know, we pitched to the board the idea of the lab and AI. If you look in the media and if you like do a Google search around dimensions of AI, it was very academic in some places, nothing business related about AI or even on the radars of businesses and so on and so forth, even with the reports with some of the consulting firm, etc., etc. And the most endorsement we got was from Marjorie herself as a founder of the business. And so many let's say in other companies they would call, the traditionalist. So there was like, yes, let's try that. Let's play with it. Let's see, what it can bring us. We did not get in that room any kind of, how do you say it, skepticism or pushback or why or what's the cost and so on and so forth. So that was originally very smooth. Now, and maybe because part of it was like a lab and you're trying stuff and playing with them and so on and so forth. And occasionally from time to time you come with some solutions and you test them and you play with the bigger business. Oh, this is fun, this is nice, etc. Now fast forward when AI became much more impacting the business as we see it today, and you start rolling out AI solutions and training and education and so on and so forth. This is where the real human kicks in everyone, and you will have those like, oh, now it's not the game anymore. We're not playing with something nice. We have to actually live with, and we have to work with, and we have to adapt, and we have so on and so forth. And this is where the fun starts. So it was a collection of um resistance, endorsement, excitement, depending on the individuals. But all in all, if I'm gonna summarize it now after a couple of years, I think the excitement and the endorsement was much much more, and proof that we're progressing with what we're doing, and so on and so forth. But then came as well with a learning journey. Um, at the beginning, as I said, like when we were talking about AI, so many had the feel that this is a technical thing, and then we embarked on a learning journey about more of change management, about managing talent and businesses and so on and so forth, and some technical element as well. Because how AI is moving, to be fair, in the non-tech space, and if you're not working at one of these AI companies, it's moving to be more natural language, like the as Google brought in the simplicity of search through one window and a plain screen. They borrowed the same concept, ChatGPT, when it came out. It's a Google on steroid to some extent. It's just a blank window and you ask questions, and the questions are more human-like in the answers. So it was not totally new creation. It was building on something that worked. And the more AI is going to be natural, driven, language driven, the less the resistance about me, I have to be technical, is gonna be less and less at the same time. So I think we're in a phase where we move from the resistance and the skepticism, and we are at a stage where how can we grow this much faster? How can we learn better? How can we get it in front of our clients? We see lots of our colleagues happy and proud to show this. And another thing that was mentioned before, and talking about clients, we started seeing it. Now clients are, when they're putting out RFPs, they want to know the AI literacy and capabilities of companies. So if I look back 18 months back when we are saying about AI, we had resistance from clients and from team members and peers in the industry about like maybe we should do it, but we should be hush hush about it. Should we tell client that we're using AI? Should we tell client that we are using ChatGPT at the beginning, or for especially for agencies or companies that they're not investing in their own technology, so they use the subscriptions tools that are out there in the marketplace. Now clients are showing up. Like there was an RFP the other day that they were very specific about understanding the AI capabilities of the agency as part of the benchmarking and the assessment of the company. And we're gonna see this more and more of that. So as this becomes a client request, which means clients are maturing and understanding that the value it will bring and the investment that will come with that as well. And it's not a saving exercise; it's more of a value exercise, or at least I hope it's gonna be evolving like this.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like it. I'm very surprised to see that that's already come into an RFP. That's
Very
forward
few,
thinking.
but some are.
I hope you get to work with that client because they sound like they know what they're doing. I have a few questions from the audience I want to bring up as well. We spoke earlier about, so there was a question about how you talk to clients about it, and I think we've answered that. You also started touching onto a question here from Sabah, which is like, how do you start advising a leadership team that is beginning this journey? And I think you gave us a couple of answers on mindsets, which is that openness, the curiosity, the willingness to experiment. Are there any two or three other words of wisdom that you would share with a leader who is, or a leadership team who is beginning this journey on how they should approach it?
Well, different individuals, you would need different approaches, but I think the common denominator, especially if you're talking about traditional leadership, is the risk of missing out.
Mm.
Uh, it's a matter of time, and the difference with internet, as we started the discussion about the comparison with the internet. The internet took several decades to transform some businesses, and with social media, and individuals got the chance to really be on the sidelines sometimes and get away with it. Um, with the speed and the scale of AI, you cannot hide anymore. And
Mm.
if you're not embracing it, and if you're not understanding at least how to manage a generation and a group of skill sets that will come into your business that are more AI savvy and they're expecting AI solutions, and again, not from a technical perspective as a workforce, then you're not going to be able to help your company uh, compete, and you will find yourself out. It's I think people in leadership position, they're categorized as such because they have to look of what's coming up and the risk that they come. And if they're not seeing it, I think this is a big problem with everything around us. And I think that's the biggest handicap.
Yes.
People think that you have to talk to a leader and convince the leader. For me, if that leader, after several years of writing on the walls and previous transformation that happened, and still until today they're oblivious to that. There's no amount of talking that can work. I'm being very frank here. There's no amount of talking and convincing. They have access to information left, right, and center. Apps, websites, social media, mainstream media, every single person is talking about it in every single industry, from agriculture all the way to weapons and big scale wars. And they're talking about AI, how it's doing it. So if you still need to sit with someone and convince them about the value of and the risk, I think you're having the wrong discussion.
That's such a it's a really good point, honestly. And in the end, to your point, why do we need leaders? We need leaders because we face uncertainty. That is their job, is to manage
Exactly.
uncertainty.
To navigate the rest of the folks through uncertainty,
Yeah,
not the other way around.
absolutely. Although sometimes leaders choose to be the source of uncertainty themselves.
Of
But
course.
of that navigation, you gave us some examples of what you've done internally in terms of the education process and onboarding people. And lucky for APCO, you guys have had a longer runway to do that because it's been, to some degree on the mind of the organization since 2018. What are some of the one or two other things that you did internally that you think really helped to move the needle of the system, right? Because we are here talking about systems thinking. One of the things that we know happens is the systems resist change. It's normal, right? You talked about it. And so as leaders, yes, one thing is seeing the future and having a clear perspective on where we need to go, but the other is our responsibility to carry the system with us and to nudge it progressively to where it really embarks on this journey in a positive way. So other than a lot of education in the process, what else do you think has worked well in terms of nudging the system of the organization itself?
Quick wins. People, it's contagious, because if you do, you have the ability to do some successes with some pockets of the business and clients like it. It serves dual role. So the ones that were part of it will be ambassadors and excited, and some will feel the pressure, the positive pressure of achieving, and some will feel the pressure of being on the sidelines. But these are very, I would say, training and education, and it's very important. But people need to feel it and touch it, not being theoretical. And I think these quick wins help into the internal adoption and internal discussions as well.
Yeah. There's a question here from Hadi that I also want to broaden a bit. So he asked, does Margie assign work to humans? And in general, I want to ask, how have you re-looked at your entire process or workflows to integrate Margie into them?
So going to Hadi's initial question, does Margie assign work to humans? Not yet. Uh, can she assign work to humans? I think yes, at one point in time. The way that we're deploying Margie, she's part of a broader team. So you have your consultants and your experts, and Margie is part of that crew. I think the way technology is moving and uh, the speed of uh, you know advancement in the AI technology, it's a matter of time before Margie or similar platforms would be, as you're working with the team, would do some work assigned to others, and this is like completely integrated. And and looking at hybrid team structure between actual individuals and agents, it's just a matter of time. Now, in some industrial businesses, we're looking at humanoids and how actual machines will be working on the sidelines of humans and sharing tasks and so on and so forth. So it's not unorthodox, and I see this happening very, very soon.
Yeah, this touches on a question from Nadine around the impact of AI on organizational design. So hybrid teams being one of the big things. Any other big impacts that you see there?
I see not impact. I see more of uh, a result. I think we're going to see a growth in more what do you call it? These professions that are human first,
Right. Like
uh,
yeah, like massages or
or restaurants or carpenters. So carpenters
sure,
are going to use AI in
things you can
some
only do with your
degree,
hands.
but still. So I think they're going to be a comeback to so many of the industries that are not AI driven to some extent. People
Mhm.
would, at a point in time, they would need like authentic stuff, and people as well need break out of it. And some
Yeah.
professions will prevail out on the back of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I always go back to chess playing. Like we still prefer to watch two human chess players play against each other, even though there is a computer that can play against Kasparov and beat him, right?
Yeah.
So we always return to some aspect of our humanity. I think that's really beautiful. A couple of questions that I have for you, again, as a leader. We talked about the role of leaders in managing uncertainty and spearheading the response of an organization to disruption. Um, a lot of us feel like, and you kind of touched on this, we're in a lot of layers of uncertainty, right? If we look at leaders in this region, the geopolitics, the economy, yes, technology on top of that. So there's quite a lot that we're dealing with to begin with. And sometimes we end up just being in firefighting mode the whole time. And we're not quite sure how to take a step back to stay ahead of disruption. At a very, very personal level, Imad, what is what are systems that you've built for yourself to be able to create that space?
To be frank, my systems are still very basic. Um, it's more about drawing stuff and you know just scratching and putting notes and connecting, and then take it to something more sophisticated. It's still very basic way of thinking.
I mean, maybe it's about returning to basics.
It's about basics. It's about, and again, I'm not the techie person in the team, so we have a team doing this, right? Uh,
Yeah.
more about human architecture,
Mm,
more than technical architecture.
I love that. And since you're here and I represent the smaller companies in our ecosystem, what would you say to a leader of an SME who doesn't have the capacity to have an AI team working for them? How do they approach this problem today?
There's so many AIs that can create teams for you and AI solutions. It's next year I think is gonna be the mass market, kind of approach to solutions, because on the back of the existing ones, like if you go back again when we compare to Facebook and Instagram and so on and so forth, there's so many businesses that were built on the back of that. So many, we have startups going by the hundreds in the AI space, getting funding left, right, and center. So yes, you're going to have the big players like the Geminis and OpenAI and Claude and so on and so forth. But so many will build on that and creating customized solution, because not everyone create agents for you. So there will be solutions that are accessible and there will be cost efficient for you to operate. But I think the main differentiator would be the human capital that you bring with these tools, because everyone will have access to these tools
Mm.
to some extent. Again, the differentiator will be the individual, not the tool itself. Because if you all have access to the same tools, it's a matter of time, and we see it already. You're all getting the same answers. So what's going to make what you're offering different from a peer company using has a subscription for the same tool or a competing tool? The
Yeah.
human capital is going to be the main differentiator again.
Yeah, I want to tell a very kind of anecdotal story about this. We've been using ChatGPT since the month it came out, like January 2023 or whatever it was. And sometimes in our team, I'll be sitting with a team member and be like, "Oh, great, yeah, no, just download this, give it to ChatGPT, ask it this question." And then they bring me back the answer. And I'm like, that's a really shitty answer. Excuse my language. And I'm like, wait, what did you ask ChatGPT? And then I look at it, and the prompt is actually not bad. It's a good prompt. So I take the prompt as a test and I put it into my ChatGPT. Same question, and it gives me a way better answer. And one day, Tala was sitting next to me, and she saw how I talk to ChatGPT and how I give it feedback and how much I invest in it. I really always say, like, I treat ChatGPT like it's an intern. So I'm actually trying to help it learn things and being kind to it and giving it feedback and so on. She's like, that's how you talk to ChatGPT? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I just give it orders. And I think even in this very anecdotal story, but it's, you get in what you get out what you put in. And so I think, to your point, there will be more technology than we can handle. We don't need to redevelop things. But if we don't take time to intentionally engage with, rethink our model, rethink our value creation, that's, I think, the real role of leadership. And also spend time. None of this, I know it feels like AI should give us really fast, simple solutions. But again, some of the fundamentals hold true. You still have to be intentional. You still have to invest. You still have to spend time. You still have to try things. That isn't going to get solved just because ChatGPT can produce a 30-page report really fast. And so that's my own personal anecdotal experience.
Oh, totally true. And you have to remember, until now, the big majority of AI tools, I would say, or large language models, they are trained on data, not on human thinking. So it's just mathematical formulas that are, averaging so many things and pulling data from different pool sets and giving you, like, I would say, the logical answer to certain questions or prompts. We're moving to a stage where AI is being trained more on human thinking as well, and combining human and data. And this is where it's going to become trickier. So this is why our kids, if you're talking about generations to come, understanding how AI operates and how they find space for themselves, I think this is the skill they're going to acquire versus us who give orders, as you said, more than partner with them. So I think they're going to be the generation where they're going to be more of partnering with the technology and not using just using the technology.
Beautiful. We're coming to a close for today, Imad, but before we let you go, thank you, first of all. We've learned so much. I have 4 more questions that we want to extract, just that last bit of wisdom from you.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask you to maybe complete my sentences. The first one is, an effective system is?
A system that's not perfect.
A system that learns and reinvents. I love that. The one leadership quality that is most needed to nurture systems thinking is?
Curiosity.
And what is one skill that we should develop to be good systems thinkers?
The one skill?
Yeah, so you gave me a mindset. Curiosity is a mindset. What about a skill?
Interesting. It's not a skill, but it's more of courage.
I love that. That's a beautiful one. Thank you. And it's also a little bit of where your own journey started with the courage in a room where people didn't turn into skeptics and were willing to be optimistic.
Exactly. Courage and the boldness of accepting to fail or to make mistakes, because so many, going back to your previous questions, leaders and so on and so forth, leaders at one point in time, they're so afraid of making mistakes because they believe that their mistake will count or will have a big impact, and trying to not to do stuff fearing a mistake is worse.
Definitely. We know that for a fact. Thank you so much, Imad, for all the valuable insights. I learned a lot. There are still a couple of questions from the audience that we didn't get a chance to answer, but I'll tag you there and maybe you can answer them in writing. And thank you for who joined us and asked.
And for the audience as well.
Say that again, please.
I said thank you, and the team and the audience was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, it really was. Obviously, this video will be up. If you want to send it to someone, you can just send them the link to the event page and they can rewatch it. We'll also publish it on our various channels and people can have access to it. And then tomorrow is our next session. So tomorrow at 11 a.m. we have Sander Hoken, who's the co-founder of the Fearless Organization Scan. And we will talk about how to build systems to increase psychological safety. So thank you for all of you for being here with us, and we hope to see you tomorrow.